All right, so we're diving into the Book of Enoch today.
It's a fascinating one.
Yeah, this collection of ancient Jewish religious texts. And you know what's really interesting about it is, well, it didn't actually make it into the Standard Bible.
That's right. It was excluded from the canon.
Right, and we're going to explore some of the reasons why, but first, let's lay some groundwork here. We'll be using excerpts from an article titled The Book of Enoch and the Ancient Astronaut Hypothesis.
That's a great article to get us started.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see how this book ties into these ancient astronaut theories. So maybe we can start by unpacking what the Book of Enoch actually is.
You know, the first thing to understand about it is it's not really a single book. It's actually a collection of 5 distinct books, each with its own unique focus.
Okay, so we're talking about a whole anthology here.
Exactly.
And for our deep dive today, we're mainly focusing on one Enoch, also known as Ethiopic Enoch, right?
Yes, that's the one we'll be primarily looking at. It contains the most detailed narratives about the Watchers.
Ah, the Watchers. That's where the connection to ancient astronauts comes in.
That's right.
Before we get into that, though, could you give us a quick overview of all 5 books, just to set the stage?
Sure. So one Enoch itself is divided into 5 sections. We have the Book of the Watchers, which, as I mentioned, details their descent to Earth and their interactions with humanity. Then there's the Book of Parables, which presents allegorical visions concerning the Messiah and the end times. The astronomical book delves into, well, astronomical phenomena and the workings of the heavens.
So it's getting pretty cosmic there.
It does. And then there's the Book of Dream Visions, recounting Enoch's prophetic dreams and visions.
So each book has its own specific focus.
Yes. And lastly, we have the Epistle of Enoch, a discourse on righteousness and the coming judgment.
All right, so 5 books, each with its own distinct theme. But let's delve into that first one Enoch, and specifically the story of the Watchers. This is where the connection to ancient astronauts really gets interesting, right?
Absolutely. The Watchers are really at the heart of this whole connection.
Okay, so who are these Watchers?
Well, the Book of Enoch describes them as angelic beings. They were sent to Earth to observe humanity.
Like divine observers.
Exactly. But they kind of strayed from their mission.
Oh.
Yes, they descended to Mount Hermon and, well, they engaged in forbidden relationships with human women.
Oh, wow, that's a bit of a twist, isn't it?
It is, and it's interesting because their motives are a bit ambiguous. Were they driven by, earthly desires or a rebellious spirit? Or was it maybe a misguided attempt to help humanity in some way?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It kind of makes you wonder about their true intentions.
It does add that extra layer of intrigue to the whole narrative.
So they come down to Earth, engage in these forbidden relationships, and what happens next?
Well, their actions have some pretty significant consequences, one of them being the birth of the Nephilim.
Ah, the Nephilim. Now, those are some fascinating figures.
They are. They're described as giants possessing immense strength and a really destructive nature.
And they show up in so many myths and legends, right?
They do, across many cultures, which raises all sorts of questions about where these stories originated.
It's like these ancient cultures might be tapping into some shared memory of something extraordinary, something that really left a mark on early human societies.
It's definitely a possibility. But the Nephilim are only one outcome of the Watchers' actions. They also imparted forbidden knowledge to humans.
Forbidden knowledge. What kind of knowledge are we talking about?
Well, they introduced things like metallurgy, cosmetics, enchantments, astrology, even divination. This knowledge triggered both advancements and a lot of corruption within early human society.
So it's like this double-edged sword, right? Knowledge that has the potential to both elevate and destroy.
Exactly. It's similar to our relationship with technology today, isn't it?
It really is. We're constantly wrestling with the ethical implications of our own advancements.
The Book of Enoch seems to be grappling with that very dilemma.
So things escalate, right? With the Nephilim wreaking havoc and forbidden knowledge spreading.
Yes. And eventually, God intervenes. He punishes the Watchers and orchestrates the destruction of the Nephilim.
Wow, so this is a pretty dramatic turn of events. But if this story was so widely known, even influential, why was the Book of Enoch eventually excluded from the Jewish and Christian biblical canons?
Well, there are several factors at play. For one, the idea of angels having physical relationships with humans was a big theological challenge. It contradicted the emerging understanding of angels as purely spiritual beings.
So it challenged the established hierarchy and nature of angelic beings.
Exactly. And it raised some tough questions about their capacity for disobedience and transgression.
Right, and would this have posed a threat to the concept of monotheism, which was solidifying at the time?
Yes, the idea of multiple powerful beings influencing events could have been seen as leaning towards polytheistic ideas, which clashed with the increasingly dominant monotheistic doctrines.
That makes sense. Maintaining a clear and unified theological framework would have been crucial back then.
It was. But there were also other reasons beyond theology. Some scholars suggest that its association with esoteric traditions, like early Jewish mysticism, played a role.
So a bit of a power struggle within religious institutions.
Perhaps. These traditions were often viewed with suspicion by mainstream authorities.
Right, controlling the narrative and maintaining authority. But were there any textual or literary reasons that contributed to its exclusion?
Absolutely. There were a lot of textual variations, and it was difficult to establish a unified and definitive version of the book. With multiple manuscripts in circulation, it was hard to determine a single authoritative version for the canon.
So it was a combination of theological and practical concerns that led to its exclusion. But despite that, the Book of Enoch continues to capture people's imaginations, especially those interested in the ancient astronaut theory.
That's right, and proponents of that theory actually interpret the book as a literal account of extraterrestrial contact.
So they're seeing the Watchers themselves as these extraterrestrial visitors.
Precisely, their descent to Mount Hermon is seen as an arrival from another planet.
And what about the forbidden knowledge that they shared? Is that seen as some kind of advanced technology being transferred to humans?
Exactly. It's seen as a possible explanation for the sudden advancements we see in some ancient civilizations.
So like a technological leap forward, facilitated by these extraterrestrial visitors.
That's the idea. And then there are the descriptions of the Watchers' celestial chariots.
Ah, yes. Those are often interpreted as descriptions of ancient spacecraft, aren't they?
They are. The idea is that they were traveling in sophisticated vehicles capable of traversing the heavens.
Like ancient spaceships.
Exactly. And then there's the Nephilim. They're often seen as the product of genetic manipulation or hybridization experiments by these extraterrestrial visitors.
So instead of being mythical beings, they're viewed as the result of advanced genetic engineering.
Right, possibly even hybrid offspring of humans and extraterrestrials.
It's a really interesting way to interpret the text, applying a modern lens of technology and space travel to these ancient descriptions.
It is. And even Enoch's own journeys to heaven, described in the book, are sometimes interpreted as potential alien abduction or contact experiences.
So the whole narrative is reinterpreted through this framework of extraterrestrial visitation. It's fascinating how a text written thousands of years ago can still spark such diverse and imaginative interpretations.
It really speaks to the power of these ancient narratives, their ability to resonate across time and cultures.
They offer a glimpse into the beliefs and worldview of our ancestors, while also prompting us to consider the mysteries of our own existence and the vastness of the universe. But we need to look at the other side of the coin as well.
Of course.
What are some of the main criticisms leveled against this ancient astronaut interpretation of the Book of Enoch?
Well, one of the main critiques comes from a theological perspective.
Right, those who adhere to a more traditional interpretation of the text.
Exactly. They argue that the Watchers should be understood within the framework of traditional religious beliefs as fallen angels who disobeyed God's commands.
So it's about emphasizing the moral and spiritual lessons embedded in the story, rather than taking it as a literal account of alien encounters.
Yes, the focus shifts to the consequences of transgression and the importance of following divine law. The Nephilim become symbols of straying from the righteous path.
So it's about understanding the text within its own religious and cultural context.
Precisely, and this leads to another criticism, which focuses on the language of the text itself.
Right, the way it was written.
Yes, critics argue that the Book of Enoch uses a lot of metaphorical and symbolic language, particularly when it's describing celestial events or the actions of supernatural beings.
So those descriptions of celestial chariots, for example, might be symbolic representations of divine power or celestial phenomena rather than literal spaceships.
Exactly. The emphasis is on understanding the literary devices used by the author rather than a strictly literal interpretation.
It's a reminder that we need to be cautious about imposing our modern understandings onto ancient texts.
We do. And another key criticism is the lack of independent archaeological or scientific evidence to support extraterrestrial visitation during that time period.
So while the narrative is compelling, we need to look for corroborating evidence from other sources.
We do. The burden of proof rests on those making extraordinary claims. And the lack of tangible evidence outside of the Book of Enoch remains a significant hurdle for the ancient astronaut theory.
It highlights the need for a multidisciplinary approach, where textual analysis is supported by archaeological findings and scientific data.
I agree. And finally, it's crucial to remember that all interpretations of ancient texts are inherently subjective. They're influenced by our own perspectives and biases.
So it's about acknowledging the limitations of our understanding and being open to different perspectives, recognizing that there might not be a single definitive answer to the mysteries presented in the Book of Enoch.
That's right. It encourages humility and intellectual curiosity. The search for knowledge is an ongoing process.
And our interpretations are always subject to change as we uncover new information.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion so far. We've explored the structure and content of the Book of Enoch, the various interpretations it's inspired, including the ancient astronaut theory and its criticisms.
It really is a testament to the enduring power of ancient texts and their ability to resonate with us across millennia.
They make us think about our place in the universe and the vast possibilities that lie beyond our current understanding. But before we move on to the legacy and influence of the Book of Enoch, I'd like to ask you a question. If you could ask Enoch himself about his experiences, what would you ask him?
That's a great question. If I could ask Enoch one question, it would be, what was the most profound insight you gained from your journeys and encounters? The insight that continues to shape your understanding of humanity and our place in the cosmos.
That's a really thought-provoking question. I imagine his answer would offer some invaluable insights into the human condition, the nature of reality, and our search for meaning.
It would be a privilege to learn from someone who, according to the text, walked with God and experienced those mysteries firsthand.
Well, listeners, we'll continue our deep dive into the Book of Enoch after a short break. We'll explore its legacy and its influence on religious and cultural traditions. And we'll delve deeper into those enduring questions it poses about humanity, the cosmos, and the nature of existence itself. Stay with us.
It's amazing to think about how, even though it was excluded from the official biblical canon, the Book of Enoch still had such a lasting impact on various religious and cultural traditions.
Yeah, it's like its influence went beyond the confines of those official texts.
Exactly. One example that comes to mind is its role in Jewish mystical traditions, particularly in Kabbalah.
Kabbalah. That's a whole other deep dive we could do someday.
It is. But the Book of Enoch, with its descriptions of angelic hierarchies and heavenly realms, really resonated with Kabbalistic thinkers.
They were drawn to those esoteric elements.
They were. They saw it as a source of insight into the mysteries of creation and the divine.
So even though it wasn't part of mainstream Jewish scripture, it found a home in these mystical circles.
It did. And it also influenced early Christian thought.
Really? Even though it was eventually excluded from the Christian canon as well.
Yes, it was known and referenced by several early Christian writers. For example, the New Testament book of Jude actually contains a direct quotation from one Enoch.
Wow, that's a pretty significant connection. It suggests that at least some early Christians saw it as a valuable text.
It does. It shows us that the idea of scriptural authority was still being debated in those early centuries of Christianity.
So the Book of Enoch was part of this larger conversation about what constituted sacred texts.
Exactly. And its influence goes even further, extending into literature, film, and popular culture.
Oh yeah, I can see how its themes would resonate with artists and writers.
They do. The themes of fallen angels, hidden knowledge, apocalyptic events, they've been explored in countless works over the centuries.
Like that seed of inspiration planted by the Book of Enoch has sprouted in all these different creative forms.
Precisely. From John Milton's Paradise Lost, which draws heavily on the Watcher's narrative, to modern fantasy novels and movies, the Book of Enoch's influence is undeniable.
So it's not just an ancient text gathering dust on a shelf. It's a living, breathing source of inspiration.
That's a great way to put it. And of course, we can't forget its role in sparking debates about humanity's origins and the possibility of extraterrestrial life.
Right, the ancient astronaut theory we discussed earlier.
Exactly. The Book of Enoch, whether interpreted literally or metaphorically, makes us question our place in the cosmos.
It challenges us to consider alternative explanations for our past and to contemplate the vast possibilities that might exist beyond our current understanding.
It's a testament to the power of these ancient narratives to transcend time and continue to spark our imaginations.
This deep dive has been quite a journey. We've covered so much ground, from the book's structure and content to its various interpretations and its enduring legacy.
It's amazing how relevant these ancient texts can still feel today.
They offer us a glimpse into the minds of our ancestors, while also prompting us to ask those big questions about ourselves and the universe.
And it's important to remember that history isn't just a collection of dry facts. It's a tapestry woven with stories, beliefs, and ideas that continue to shape our world.
And the Book of Enoch is a prime example of that, a text that has intrigued, challenged, and inspired people for centuries.
It invites us to think critically, to question our assumptions, and to embrace the mystery and wonder that surrounds us.
Well said. And for our listeners who are intrigued by the Book of Enoch and want to learn more, what would you recommend as a starting point?
I'd say start with 1 Enoch, particularly the Book of the Watchers. It's the most accessible and captivating section. There are some good translations available online and in print.
And as we discussed, it's crucial to approach the text with an open mind, considering different perspectives and appreciating its symbolic language.
Absolutely. And I'd encourage listeners to reflect on how the ideas in the Book of Enoch connect with their own beliefs and their own search for meaning.
It's a journey of exploration, both intellectual and spiritual.
It is. The Book of Enoch is a gift from the past, an invitation to engage in a timeless conversation about the human experience, our place in the universe, and the possibilities that lie ahead.
Well, listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our deep dive into the Book of Enoch. It's been an enlightening exploration, and I hope it sparked your curiosity to delve even deeper into this fascinating and enigmatic text. Until next time, keep exploring and keep questioning.
And may your journey be filled with wonder and discovery.
You know, it's amazing to think that even after thousands of years, the Book of Enoch can still spark our imaginations and challenge how we see the world.
It is. It really speaks to the power of these stories. And you know how we humans are always fascinated by the unknown.
Always.
The Book of Enoch tackles these big questions about where we come from, our purpose, the mysteries of the cosmos. Those questions never really go away.
It's true. They stay with us. And as we've been talking about, there are so many ways to interpret this book. From the theological interpretations that focus on, the moral lessons of the Watchers, to the ancient astronaut theory that sees it through the lens of extraterrestrial contact.
Yeah.
It's like the Book of Enoch offers this huge tapestry of possibilities.
It does, and that's what makes it so compelling, It doesn't give you easy answers or just one single interpretation. Instead, it asks us to have a conversation with the past, to see things from different angles.
To wrestle with these complex ideas about history and belief and the human experience.
Exactly. It encourages us to think critically and to be open to the possibility that we don't have all the answers about our past or, the vastness of the universe.
Definitely. So much we don't know. So for our listeners who are now completely intrigued by the Book of Enoch and want to learn more, what would you suggest is a good starting point for them?
Well, I'd say start with 1 Enoch, especially the Book of the Watchers. That's the most accessible section. And it's really captivating. There are a bunch of good translations available online and in print, too. And it's also helpful to read some scholarly articles or commentaries just to get a better understanding of the historical context.
Yeah, and the nuances of the language and all the different interpretations out there.
Exactly.
And as we've discussed, it's so important to come to the text with an open mind.
Yes.
To consider different perspectives and appreciate all that symbolism and imagery.
Absolutely. I would also say, think about how the themes and ideas in the Book of Enoch connect to your own beliefs, your own view of the world.
Right, to your own personal search for meaning.
It's a journey that can lead to some really profound insights, a deeper appreciation for ancient wisdom and the mysteries that still shape how we understand ourselves and the cosmos.
Well said. This deep dive has been a fascinating journey for me.
Me too.
We've gone from the book's structure and content to the interpretations, the legacy. It's incredible how these ancient narratives can still have so much power.
It's a reminder that history is more than just facts and dates. It's a living tapestry,
Woven with stories and beliefs and ideas that continue to shape our world.
They do.
And the Book of Enoch, well, it's a perfect example of that, a text that has sparked debate and inspired people for centuries.
It really encourages us to question, to explore, to keep searching for knowledge and understanding.
Well, listeners, I hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the Book of Enoch as much as we have. It's been a truly enriching experience, and I hope it sparked your curiosity, inspired you to learn more about this fascinating and at times enigmatic text. Until next time, keep exploring and keep those questions coming.
And may your journey be filled with wonder and discovery.